He sat alone on a cold park bench, clothes torn, eyes distant. Just another face people walked past every day. When she saw him, she felt pity, maybe even disgust. But what she didn't know was that the man she dismissed so easily once owned the building she lived in. His story wasn't about poverty. It was about prejudice, loss, and an unexpected truth that would shake her world. Because occasionally, the man you look down on is the one you should have looked up to. If this opening already made you feel something, pause for a second and tell me in the comments what you'd have done if you were in her place. Your thoughts matter more than you think. For years, Mitchell had lived a life no one truly saw. Once a brilliant engineer with ideas that could have shaped the future, he now spent his days wandering the city, notebook in hand, sketching inventions no one cared to notice. His downfall wasn't because he failed. It was because others refused to see beyond his skin. Each morning, he sat on the same weathered park bench near the financial district, where polished shoes and tailored suits passed by without a glance. Among them was Claire, a young marketing executive who believed she understood struggle until she saw Mitchell. To her, he was just another homeless man, another reminder of a world she thought she pitied but never truly understood. What neither of them knew was that this fleeting glance, this moment of silent judgment, would unravel a story that would change both of their lives forever. The morning was colder than usual when Mitchell shuffled through the park, his notebook tucked under his arm. To most, it was just a worn pad filled with random scribbles. But to him, it held blueprints, ideas that could power homes, purify water, and change lives. He had once presented those ideas in a boardroom full of men who smiled at his ambition but laughed behind his back. That laughter cost him everything: his company, his savings, and his reputation. All because no one believed a black man could be the mind behind such brilliance. Now the park was his office, the benches, his boardroom, and yet he still dreamed. That's when Claire began noticing him more often. She'd pass by daily, coffee in hand, sometimes glancing, sometimes ignoring. Until one morning she saw him standing near the fountain, picking up a piece of paper that had fallen from her purse. He extended it toward her, smiling politely. But instead of gratitude, her first instinct was fear. She hesitated, clutching her bag tighter, eyes darting to the nearby security guard. The guard noticed. He strode over, hand on his belt, demanding to know what Mitchell was doing. Mitchell tried to explain, softly, calmly, but his words only seemed to make things worse. Within moments, he was surrounded, questioned, and accused. People stopped to watch. Phones came out. And all because he tried to return a piece of paper. Claire stood frozen. She wanted to speak up, but her voice wouldn't come. Maybe she didn't want the attention. Maybe part of her believed the worst. Whatever the reason, she turned away, leaving him there, humiliated and powerless. If you've ever seen someone judged unfairly and wished the world would stop for just 1 second to see the truth, keep watching. What happens next will shake you. But as she walked to work, something gnawed at her. The way his voice trembled when he said, "I was just trying to help." The way his hands shook as they went through his worn backpack, showing nothing but a notebook filled with sketches and equations. There was truth in his eyes, and shame in hers. That night, she couldn't shake the image of him sitting alone under the streetlight, notebook open, writing like his life depended on it. Who was this man she'd misjudged so easily? Why did his drawings look so precise, so purposeful? The next morning, she made a decision she couldn't explain. She followed him. What she discovered next would change everything she believed about him and herself. The following day, Claire followed Mitchell quietly from a distance. She watched him enter an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town, a place most people avoided. Inside, sunlight filtered through broken windows, illuminating a small workspace made of scraps and rusted tools. On an old wooden table lay what looked like a miniature engine, hand-built, precise, and unlike anything she'd ever seen. Mitchell was working feverishly, adjusting wires, sketching notes, his hands trembling with both passion and exhaustion. Claire stepped closer, realizing what she was seeing wasn't madness, it was genius. A prototype for clean energy made entirely from recycled parts. She gasped softly, and he turned. Their eyes met. For a brief second, silence hung between them. Then the sound of heavy boots interrupted the silence. 2 police officers appeared at the entrance. Someone had reported a suspicious black man breaking in. Mitchell froze. Claire stepped forward to explain, but they ignored her. They ordered him to put his hands up. He tried to show his notebook, his plans, his life's work, but one officer grabbed it and tossed it aside, pages scattered across the dusty floor like fallen dreams. Mitchell's voice cracked. "Please, this is my work." But his words were drowned by orders, by prejudice, by fear. One wrong move, and his life could vanish like all the others before him. Claire's heart pounded as she shouted, "Stop! He didn't do anything!" But it was too late. One of the officers pushed him to the ground, his invention crushed beneath a boot. And in that moment, watching his life's work destroyed, his dignity stripped away, Mitchell's silence said more than any protest ever could. What no one knew was that someone had recorded everything, and that video was about to change everything. The video spread faster than anyone expected. Within hours, millions had seen it. The footage of Mitchell, a homeless black man, thrown to the ground for simply existing, for daring to create. The world watched in silence, then in outrage. News. Anchors debated, protests grew, and hashtags filled the screen. But behind all the noise was one truth that couldn't be ignored. The man they judged without a second thought was, in fact, a visionary. Reporters dug deeper. His patents, his research, his name, all real. Years ago, his invention had been stolen by the same corporation that once praised his brilliance in private but erased him in public. And now, the world was forced to see what prejudice had buried. Claire couldn't escape the guilt. She visited him in the hospital, his notebook now bent but still filled with dreams. She apologized, not with words, but with action. She shared his story and told the world who he really was. Her post became the spark that reignited his name. Weeks later, a new foundation was born in his honor, funding young black inventors who were once invisible, just like him. But for Mitchell, the scars ran deeper than any apology could reach. He had seen how quickly a man could lose his worth, not because of his mind, but because of his color. And yet, he still believed. He looked into the camera one day and said quietly, "Maybe they saw a homeless man, but I was never without purpose." His words echoed across millions of screens. Because this story wasn't just about Mitchell, it was about the countless others who are seen, but never truly seen. So the question remains, how many more geniuses will we overlook before we learn to see beyond the surface? If this story moved you, don't let it fade away. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you believe more people should be seen for who they truly are. Because stories like this deserve to be remembered.